Welcome back, Prospect Live viewers. We're back with another 2020 team breakdown for the MLB draft. Of course, we have the Houston Astros, the notorious Houston Astros to break down today. Everyone get their screams, pitchforks, lit torches out, start yelling at your screens because we're going to talk a little Houston baseball. I'm welcoming in Joe Doyle from our site. Joe, let's talk a little bit about Houston over the last few drafts. They've had some decent names that they've pulled in, despite being an incredibly successful team that's drafted, a little bit later on in the draft with guys like Corey Lee last year, Seth Beer the year before, Jay Bukowskis. Obviously, that pair had been shipped off, of course, to Arizona in that Zach Greinke deal. And then Forrest Whitley, if we go back all the way to 2016. So we do have some names here, some prospects. We know they're a good development organization. What are you hearing from the Houston side of things? What's sort of the buzz?
Yeah, they're in a tough spot. They've only got 4 picks, but that really doesn't tell the story because their first pick isn't until number 74 or 72, excuse me. And because of that, you're gonna have $2.2 million to spend over the course of 4 picks. You can spread that out as $600,000 to four different players. $600,000 is only going to get you 4th or 5th round value college players. So what I've heard from a couple of different people is they're probably going to make one big splash. And I think that Houston's farm system in the way that it is, just 3 years ago, it was a top 5 system. But now you're looking at one of the, to be frank, one of the more desolate farm systems in baseball. So they need some high leverage, high upside talent. And so I do think they're going to make a splash and probably go for a big prep. My guess would be they will probably go for whoever will take 1.6 million, 1.7 million. I think there's a lot of guys that fit in that bracket, honestly.
Sure. Any high-end names you could throw at us?
Yeah, I think, the likes of a Kobe Mayo, a third base prospect out of Florida. I think Dax Fulton actually makes a lot of sense. I don't know if there's any chance he lasts that long. But if there's a team that can sign him and just throw the whole pool at him, it might be the Astros. A couple other that might make sense. I think Yohandry Morales out of Florida makes some sense for the Astros. And then,
some video of Morales here.
Yeah, some video on Morales. Sweet right-handed swing. Probably going to move off short over to third base, but big tall kid. I think he's 6'4", a lot of projection in his frame. Plus power for sure, but that's not what this is about. And then the last one that I want to throw out is maybe a Chase Davis. I haven't heard him connected to the team, but they do love prep outfielders. Kyle Tucker is going to be graduating here, or if he hasn't graduated already. So the system could use a little influx in top tier outfield talent as well. At the end of the day, I think what is for sure in my eyes and what I'm hearing is they're going to go high upside and spend a lot of their money on one pick and probably go senior signs with the other 3.
Yeah, and Davis and Mayo in particular are 2 names that sort of stick out, and Morales as well. But Davis and Mayo in particular have really high upside. Davis is a guy that from every inclination that I've heard is likely to hit campus. But if there's a big bonus and the number makes sense for him and his family, it wouldn't shock me to see him sign. Houston wouldn't be a bad fit because they have done a pretty good job at developing the hitting talent that's been in that organization, whether it's high-end guys or even some of those later round guys that they've plucked out, maybe somebody like, Abraham Toro, for example. So It wouldn't be a bad fit for one of these kids if they can get into a good organization and they can get some money. Might be some sneaky stuff we could see coming from Houston. Any other points you want to make on the Astros, anything they're connected to, any other things that you're hearing before we move on to our next video?
When it comes to the Astros, unfortunately in this draft cycle, due to their actions, there's just not a lot to be said. There's not a lot of money to be spent. They're not going to be on the clock for 71 picks. So I think you're going to see a flash in the pan at 72. But that will largely end their 2020 MLB draft. I think that's going to be it right there.
Well, there you have it. Look for a big splash at pick 72 out of the Houston Astros. Next up, the Atlanta Braves. Thanks for joining us.